Good evening, yogis. Jill, you're right in the middle tonight. Happy to see your face. Thanks, Mary, for co-hosting, coasting, and we'll wait just a moment or so as people drift in. Ease yourself into a relaxed, aware presence. While you're at it, drop any identities like meditator, Buddhist, and if you can, drop any identities even as a person. Just be aware. So what we're doing, what we're doing as I invite you to drop all these identities is to step out of any concepts of yourself, views of yourself, and just experience life directly, right where it touches you. And this immediate and direct experience is not something that's easy to put in words, or should it even be put in words? For the sake of our practice this evening, if we have to talk about it, then words are necessary, but to experience ourselves directly, we don't need anything. I'll use words to offer some pointers or instructions, but they're just practical pointers to be with life as it's unfolding, not to do anything, not to undo anything, not to figure anything out, not to solve any problems, but just to be aware, be a human. Not even the idea of a human, but the experience of one. And what you're likely to find if you drop all the identities and projects is you'll find a simple awareness that seems to be a given, unconditioned. Can't stop it if you try. And that awareness, natural mind, you could say, or as Ajahn Chah would call it, original mind, is already peaceful, already has solved the basic problem, which is distorted thinking. So we just connect again with that simple, aware presence. And we let go of trying to become something tonight. Just be as we are. You'll see that there's awareness here. And you'll see that many experiences will display themselves. And often the first thing that to arise in awareness is the felt experience of our sitting body. And we want to really take that in and enjoy it. Even try to enjoy all the different kinds of sensations that are felt, both pleasant and unpleasant, and the ones that are somewhere in between, neither pleasant or unpleasant. You're also likely to notice, without really meditating or being a meditator, you're likely to notice that as the body becomes part of the field of awareness, you could say when mind meets body, nature of mind meets body, there is a calming, there's a stilling. The body falls into the same stillness and steadiness of awareness without forcing anything, holding anything, just completely letting go of gain and just receiving the experience of the sitting body. It stills. Likely to effortlessly notice that the body is breathing. And if you let the body stay close to this simple awareness, a little bit more intimately, naturally feel the register the gentle movements, the sensations that are created when the body breathes. And as those sensations are received of breathing, enjoying them, enjoying the short breaths, the long breaths, the rough breaths, the smooth breaths, the deep and the shallow. Enjoying just the what Suzuki Roshi calls the ultimate fact that you are aware here. And as we're attuning to what's here, you're aware of breathing, aware of sitting. And perhaps you're aware of hearing and the sounds, distant, close, the sound of silence, the sound of my voice. We receive all the sounds, loud and soft. No need to name them or judge them, just hearing. Sensing how the awareness, that original mind, is not affected by what sounds come, just knows. The original mind is not affected by what moods come, which are likely to come. Awareness of sad is not sad. The awareness of thoughts is not thinking, and it's not bothered by the thoughts. Because when there is awareness and the thoughts are just seen as an expression of awareness, they quiet by themselves. Even the reactive mind tends to feed the thinking mind. Even the reactive mind is not affected. Or awareness is not affected by the reactive mind. It's just aware. Oh, this is reactivity. This is anger. This is frustration. This is desire. Everything welcome. As we are resting easily in that ever-present wakefulness and clarity, uncreated awareness that we are. This is nature. Just this moment, just this awareness, and just what fills awareness. If it feels too amorphous to just be aware, then feel free to rely on the anchor of the body as a support for awareness. And keep returning again and again to awareness of body, awareness of breath. Just this breath, just this moment. Remember that Buddha is your mind, as Ryokan puts it. and the way goes nowhere. Just settle back into the moment with an active, receptive, kind, and interested awareness. Life as it is, just this moment. When you realize that you've been absorbed in a story of yourself or life or others, plans, memories, celebrate that re-arising mindfulness. It's natural to get absorbed from time to time. We celebrate when we return to our original mind, that natural awareness, momentarily free of any view of self. There's more peace immediately. So we bathe in that moment of reawakening, and in support of it, if necessary, we anchor our attention again in the body or breath. If not, just be aware and see what arises next. Sounds, sensations, breath, moods, thoughts, everything welcome, clinging to nothing, being no one in particular, just aware. In this way, we rest our weary minds. Just this moment, just this awareness, just this body, breath, or whatever's predominant. Be aware. Welcome everyone to Mission Dharma, especially those who haven't been here before. Our virtual Sangha. I've been remarkably moved and impressed by how intimate it can feel to be together online. And even after a little sitting, 45 minutes, just in moments returning to our original mind, just a mind that knows. It's like we fulfill that recommendation from that poem by, I think it's David Budbill, where he says we're all like bugs in a bowl, all day going around our bowl, sliding up the steep sides, falling back down, up again and down, head in our hands, cry, moan, feel sorry for myself. Or, as he says, look around. Look at your fellow bugs. Say, nice bowl. So it's nice. This is a nice bowl. It's not in person, not ideal, but love our fellow bugs too. You can do a little virtual loving kindness toward those who have helped support your practice this evening. And just know you can go to each screen and love each person up, and just know you're being loved by somebody. And also feels good to look at your fellow bugs. And in some ways, this is the promise of the Dharma, is to come out of the tangle of our self-preoccupation, just back to that natural silent presence, and empty of self, but full of everything and everyone. Makes us so able to connect. Yet it's so easy to dart away. I notice sometimes when I'm talking to somebody and it gets really quiet. And even when I'm talking to you, it gets really quiet. The dog barks. But it gets really quiet. And speaking to someone, looking at them, looking at me, and we're not being anybody for a moment. And it's interesting how the mind has habituated to want to make a leap, create a project, a problem, somebody. Really practices to get used to being nobody, but full of capacity. So maybe just final touches on our appreciation of our fellow bugs. Please feel free to unmute and say good evening to each other. And feel free to say where you're calling in from if you so desire. Good evening. Well, that means unmute for a moment.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone from
Hi.
Oakland.
I know Emmy.
From
Hi.
Canada.
Burlingame.
Hi.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Bugs. Love you.
Good to see everybody.
Hi,
everyone.
From
Canada.
Yeah.
I love bugs.
Hi, Canada.
Big love from Nashville.
Hi from San Francisco.
Hi from San Francisco.
Hi from Burlingame.
Hi from Lake Tahoe.
Francisco.
Hello from Regina.
San Francisco.
Yay.
Portland, Oregon.
So you have to admit this has not happened at any time in the history of the world where people could come together so in some ways so effortlessly. So in the middle of all of our complaints, there's this delicious possibility of sensing that mutual awakening happening on all corners. There may even be a few people from our retreat this weekend from the Prescott community. But Prescott community all of a sudden became a community that included people from someone from New Zealand, from the Bay Area, from Canada. It's an amazing thing just to practice together. And just I notice the longer we're together, just being ourselves, being together, there's a fragrance to it, a fragrance of, I call it the fragrance of non-self, but the face of that is goodwill and tenderness and acceptance. And I know that these are in some ways rarefied conditions, that not everybody even has access to internet or computers. But at least I'm working with my complaining mind and just trying to really feel gratitude and appreciation for what I am, what I have. And I think a lot of Thoreau, who said, I'm grateful for what I am and what I have. My thanksgiving is perpetual. It's surprising how contented one can be with nothing definite, only a sense of existence. Oh, how I laugh at my vague, indefinite riches, where no run on my bank can drain it. Where my wealth isn't possession, isn't all my stuff. It's the enjoyment of being awake. So I hope that you can't hear the very loud fan on this computer I'm using tonight. But I am a little bit inclined to keep talking for a while, and if we have time, we'll have a little question and discussion, etc. But during the sitting, a few things popped into my mind. One of them was about the subtle but so persistent, insistent tendency to want to reinforce that fundamental misconception that there is a solid self to which everything's happening. There isn't one. Just doesn't really exist. There's no such thing really as a self. Now, having said that, we're all here, aren't we? So we don't disappear into the void because there's nothing that we can call a self. In fact, that whatever the sense of I is, when we really look to see what it is, it's just a thought. It does not point to anything constant. It exists completely independently from everything else. But the persistence and insistence in referencing everything to this I, and then building little monuments to it, so subtle and so insidious that it actually causes us to lose a sense of the natural vitality, the natural happiness of being conscious, that consciousness that we are, Buddhas that we are. And I was thinking of the story I've told many times here, but it just keeps coming back to me as such a reminder. And so whenever I get the chance to share it again, and it feels relevant to the conversation that we're having or I'm having with anyone else, I bring it back again. It's about the time that I was visiting a teacher in India, and I was just very determined to be. My heart had really coalesced around this longing to awaken. It seemed like, and I understood it to be the only desire that no other desire could fulfill. And I already knew that it was about it. It was that awakening is an inside job. It's not something that we can discover by going. But there I was traveling all the way to India to see this teacher. And before I even got to have a really immediate and inquiry with him and conversation to fulfill that passion that I had, I got extremely ill. Some kind of bug that I picked up in arrival, just bacterial infection, virus, whatever it was. And I became kind of delirious and quite flu-like, and just everything about my body was not working right. And I didn't realize at the time that I was really very identified with how ill I had become. And when I was finally a little bit better, body was a little bit better, I took a walk along the Ganges River in order to meet the teacher, really have one of my first conversations with him. And just as I was entering the street where the teacher was staying in this little kuti, in this little cottage, I bought a clump of bananas, and I thought how nice that would be for my very unhappy stomach. And then as I was walking down the block to see the teacher, a monkey jumped out of a tree and took my bananas from me. And I just recoiled, and the whole thing was very overwhelming to me. And it seemed to all fit into how difficult life was in this moment of being so ill. But I was well enough to go see him, so I finally made my way, trudged my way, dragged my body along the side of the Ganges River and into this little kuti and up to the second floor of this little place. And he greeted me at the door, and he asked, he's very, very, talk about empty of self, full of availability, full of what's sometimes called in the Tibetan tradition, unconfined capacity. You could just feel it in his presence. He says, well, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Because he knew I had been sick, and he had sent me a big chunk of cheese, which I could never figure out why he sent me, because it seemed like exactly the wrong thing to eat. But it was a generous offering. But anyway, he says, how are you feeling? And I said, well, I'm feeling much better, but I'm still sick. And he looked at me with the most intent but humorous eyes, with a little grin on his face, smiled, and he says, where is sick? I couldn't find sick. And there was something about the way he said it that it became so clear that I had literally incarnated as somebody who's sick. I had embellished the actual symptoms of what I was having with this identity of being sick. And without that identity, when I couldn't find sick, all of a sudden there was a surge of vitality. And still some symptoms, body didn't, but whatever I am, you are beyond the identities, beyond this story of self, the story of me. It was just fine, and alive and energized. I think part of this got inspired because I heard this wonderful quote today from a very well-known modern teacher named Byron Katie. I'm sure some of you have done her work and sat with her, and I've had the good fortune of sitting with her and really enjoy her natural freedom in her teaching of inquiry, of really questioning some of these views that we have about ourselves. And a quote I read from her today, or someone shared with me and then gave it to me, said, "There is no story that is you or that leads to you. There is no story that is you or that leads to you. Every story leads away from you. You are what exists before all stories. You are what remains when the story is understood." I thought that was beautiful. I'll read it once more. There is no story that is you or that leads to you. Every story leads away from you. You are what exists before all stories. You are what remains when the story is understood. So, of course, this is one variation on a common theme in the Buddha's teaching, is that most of our stories, the story of ourself, is the story of somebody who has a project, the story who has something that needs to be done in time in order for us to be happy. So a lot of the identity view, the identity of self, is story of someone is going through time to some point where there's a relief. And what that obscures, and it often goes through, it keeps re-arising. Each story keeps re-arising with I, me, mine as the central character, desiring something, wanting something, so innocently wanting something that will bring relief, not realizing that the very state of wanting to become something or acquire something or get rid of something, to fix something, to figure something out, that the very state of craving for that is what obscures, is what leads us away from the truth, makes truth hard to live for, and even makes us forget that it even exists, and also fundamentally makes us forget that we are essentially, this is just a more poetic way of saying, we are what we're looking for. That original mind that I spoke about during the sitting this evening. I'll just read a little quote from Ajahn Chah, which it's been circling through the last several months. It says, the truth is about this mind is that there's nothing wrong with it. Try that on for a moment. It's intrinsically pure. Within itself, it's already peaceful. That the mind is not peaceful these days is because it follows moods. The real mind doesn't have anything to it. It's fundamentally empty, quiet back there. It's simply an aspect of nature. It becomes peaceful or agitated because moods deceive it. And I would just add, distorted ideas of myself deceive it. But really, this mind of ours is already unmoving and peaceful. Just like a leaf which is still as long as no wind blows. Our practice is to see the original mind, to wake up to what we are before we think, before the story. I added that. So we must train the mind to know the sense impressions sights, sounds, smells, tastes, sensations, thoughts. To know the sense impressions and not get lost in them. To make it peaceful. Just this is the aim of all the difficult practice that we put ourselves through. So the other thing I was thinking about as that story of where is sick floated through my mind, and then what was there when sick was gone was just simplicity, awareness, whatever. Nothing that could even be put in words or story form. It's just quiet. I thought of the Buddha, and I really wanted to share this again, this story of this not story, but the song of the Buddha's awakening, because it's directly related to why we practice the way that we do, which is really just a practice, a moment-to-moment practice of freedom, a practice of being free of greed, being free of hatred, being free of delusion and confused notions about ourselves and each other. When I was thinking about the practice of freedom, I was thinking of the words of Dogen, where he says, meditation is not a means of enlightenment, it's enlightenment itself. It's an enlightened activity, just being aware and relating to life in a way that is in accordance with the way life is, and in general, not in contention with life. So all the practices are, you could say, are both an end and the means to meet our life in a way that's in harmony with the way it is. So how do we meet this life the way it is? So if you think of the Buddha was looking for something stable. He saw the sick, the person who was extremely ill, that formation. He saw the person who was really old. He saw the person who was a corpse, saw the renunciate, and he said, it seems like all these things could happen to me. All these things will happen to me: sickness, aging, dying. And this renunciate, who seems very peaceful, who's not busy being anybody, seems to just be living very simply, doesn't seem to be in a state of rushing or grasping. I think I want a little more of what that guy has. And I can see that everything that I've been using to find this relief from this basic feeling of unsatisfactoriness that I have, as all the medicine I've been taking all of these years just seems like it's subject to the same laws as our bodies. Everything that arises changes. Everything is impermanent. Everything is imperfect. It just can't give me lasting satisfaction. And everything seems to be very impersonal. I can't make my body not age. I can't make it not get old. I can't make it not get sick. I can't make it not die. It's not me. It's not mine. If it was me, I could control it. And in the process of just over and over seeing the nature of every experience down to the most microscopic, something in his mind started to let go, and he sought the way to be with this, the way to be with this constant change and uncertainty in our life that every experience is like quicksand. It slips through our mind and we don't know what will happen next. The way to be with this is certainly not to cling, not to be in contention with, not to fight it, because it wins, because it operates according to its own laws. And it doesn't really work to try to fix this river of change into something that's, even though conceptually it makes a little sense, whatever it is that's me is not a solid thing. It may be a felt sense, but that changes according to who I'm with. And the body is changing, everything's changing, and the stories even change. But the more he saw how life actually is, the more his mind started to relax a little bit and not fight it so much. So the practice of freedom, this non-contentious, non-judgmental, non-interfering awareness that we call mindfulness and clear comprehension, it's just the wise way to be. This choiceless love that's not so interfering or affected by what it's noticing. And so as the Buddha fell into a non-reactive mind a little bit more, just from seeing the way things are, he experienced this thing that we talked about last week a lot, this quality of this immeasurable quality of equanimity, of balance, of this kind of unshakable balance of mind that has its seed in every moment of mindful attention. It's really the practice of freedom, the practice of being in harmony with things as they are. This expression called yata bhuta, things as they are, to be able to be in harmony with that. And it may sound, okay, all this acceptance of things as they are, does that mean we just lay down and don't do anything about all the terrible things in this world? No. We first and foremost, we free ourselves from the de-energizing, from the burdensome tendency to make things solid and make things so personal, to free ourselves to actually do something useful wherever. And it starts with being able to be free enough to look at each other's little windows here and do our little stealth metta, or any other kind of act of kindness or generosity or patience, or any kind of physical help that you can do. All of it made more accessible if our mind is less burdened. So when the Buddha's mind fell into that balance, in a flash of insight, he had this awakening that all that reliable, silent, peaceful, end of the rainbow relief that he had been looking for and couldn't find in changing conditions, in a flash of insight, he realized that the unmoving, the original mind, the intrinsic silence was none other than his own mind. Not anything he could put in a box or take ownership of. It was just nature, impersonal, as Ajahn Chah says. He says it's just an aspect of nature. But he had seen something that I think is really important for us to see, how insidious this house of self is that gets built in these stories that Katie Byron says there's no story that is you or that leads to you. Every story leads away from you. You are what exists before all stories. You are what remains when the story is understood. So when the Buddha had this awakening, he let, as many people do spontaneously when they've had some kind of shift in their perception of reality, tapped into the magic of life, which we easily also lose. We lose our sense of awe and wonder and magic when we get too preoccupied. And often we get preoccupied, it's not anybody's fault, it's just conditioning. It's just conditions. But the Buddha spontaneously let out this song that continually is a source of inspiration. He said, through many births in the wandering on, and I'll editorialize a little bit, through many births, you can think of it as going through rounds of rebirth, lifetime after lifetime, or you can think of every little drama of your mind that you get into, every problem that needs to be solved, everything that you seek, every desire you try to fulfill. Each one of those is a lifetime that ends and tends to, if you don't understand the way our mind works, tends to lead to more cycles of dissatisfaction, wanting, becoming, getting, losing, loss, then more dissatisfaction. And then we tend to, as a culture of greed, we tend to fill it with more desires. And really, we haven't ever left the present moment. We're always right here, but our mind is in a constant going. It's why we can't sit still and can't just look into each other's eyes and enjoy ourselves, enjoy the peace, enjoy the you don't have to get weird about it, but just eye contact. You don't have to get creepy about it. You just have love meeting love. Just, when are we going to do that? We have to save it for some future fantasy, or do we start doing it with the person who we meet on the street, or of course, the places where you have to protect yourself and guard your senses, but there's so many opportunities to just be empty and full of the other person, open hearted. Anyway, so the Buddha let out this song. Through many births in the wandering on, I ran, seeking but not finding the maker of this house, the house of self that we keep spinning out. It's called samsara, endless wandering. Through many births in the wandering on, I ran, seeking but not finding the maker of this house. O house builder, you've been seen. You shall not build a house again. And I'll just slow down a little bit here. O house builder, it's just the way the mind creates me over and over again. The idea of me. Not the you, the individual that is just here, full of life, conscious, the fruit of everything that's ever happened, that creative expression of life. No, but the imaginary version of yourself. O house builder, you've been seen. You shall not build another house again. Your rafters are broken. That means the defilements of mind that make you think you can't be happy now. Make you think that you are somebody who is flawed, that needs deliverance in time. One who doesn't see that there is no deliverance in time. That freedom is now. O house builder, you've been seen, you shall not build a house again. Your rafters are broken. That's the defilements in the mind, the hindrances that keep coloring our perception, make us feel like we can't be happy now. Your ridge house builder, you shall not build a house again. Your rafters are broken. Your ridgepole destroyed. The ridgepole is ignorance, ignorance of what you are, ignorance of not seeing, not the ignorance of believing that you are that story of yourself. Remember, there is no story that is you and leads to you. And there's no story of your mother that is your mother, as Anagarika Munindra put it. A thought of your mother is not your mother. Go back again. O house builder, you've been seen, you shall not build a house again. Your rafters are broken, ridgepole destroyed. The mind gone to the unconditioned, to cravings, cessation, ending, fading away, to cravings fading, it has come. Gone to the unconditioned. It sounds very exotic, doesn't it? This is just the original mind, the natural wakefulness through which we're perceiving right now. Home, sweet home. And, so to know that, to realize that, and then to live a life that is in harmony with that understanding. So the understanding, the gradual understanding, was that nothing can be clung to. And so we meet everything with a mind that doesn't cling. Mindful, non-contentious, choiceless love, open, interested in everything. Ordinary, accessible. Are you aware? What are you aware of? It seems so simple, and it's so easily, this thing called mindfulness, so easily co-opted by the mindfulness project. It's really just a practice of freedom, moment by moment. And if one does this moment by moment, as many moments as we do it, those are moments of little drops in the bucket of more ease and less reactivity and more equanimity, more joy, more calm. Everything is the byproduct of this simple practice of freedom. So completely practical. How else should we be with reality that changes, that you can't hold on to? How else should we be? Should we hold on? You know, I sometimes, when giving the teachings on going to for refuge, which is the classic ritual at the beginning of practice periods, and some people do it every day. I go to the Buddha for refuge, go to the Dhamma for refuge, I go to the Sangha for refuge, and we know the Buddha is this great historical example of awakening. It's also that in us which is awake. Then you go to the Dharma, these beautiful teachings that we bounce off of, and they remind us of that it's possible to awaken and to be non-harming and to be a blessing in this world. But Dharma is what's happening right now. And then there's Sangha. But often we go to the Dharma, and the Dharma is the teachings, and what do you hear when you hear the teachings? In a sense, you're hearing, don't do anything. You don't need to go anywhere. I say, remember these refuges, because they really go against the stream of everything we're taught from the day we're born. Because the day we're born, we're taught to gratify every desire, just feed that wanting mind, to think all day and just keep trying to secure and build the story of ourselves, a better self. Why does Wei Wu Wei in his poetry say, why are you unhappy? He says, because 99.9% of everything you do and think is for yourself, and there isn't one. This is not bad news. It's just the way it is. Where is the self here? There's this mind body, there's this identity which changes all the time. Tonight I'm guru or whatever. Home I'm nobody. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not. Where's the constant in any of it? It simply doesn't exist as a thing or a place. So the world is saying, think all day, gratify every desire, build yourself, hold on tight, control your experience. Heart of the Dharma, the practice of freedom is let go, non-clinging, not anatta, not in control. The three characteristics: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, selflessness, otherwise described as not permanent, not perfect, not personal. It's the practice of letting go. Practice of the world is hold on. Everything's personal. It's all about me. I'm better than, I'm equal to, I'm less than. Oy, it's so exhausting, all this comparing. So the practice of freedom is to just be yourself. It's plenty. It's amazing. It's enough. Not being fixed as something. We're slowly losing people. Not being fixed as something. Mind, our nature is beyond presence, beyond absence. It neither comes nor goes, gets born nor dies. It is illuminated nor obscured. This is Lama Shakbar. Mind's nature is vivid as a flawless crystal, intrinsically empty, naturally radiant, ceaselessly responsive, stripped bare of all the samsaric errors. Samsara is that endless ego building, house building. Stripped of samsaric error, mind itself is surely and always Buddha. Buddha means awake. So may we all awaken to what we already are. So much so that anybody can say anything about you, praise or blame. You can have gain or loss. This is my practice. You can have fame or shame. You can have pleasure or pain, and does not touch what you are. May it be so, and may our practice today and every day be a blessing to all beings in all directions. And I would like to invite everyone, after I hit the gong, to please say goodnight to each other and just share your Buddha nature. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Howie. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, Howie. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Howie.
Everyone.
Thanks,
Night,
Howie.
everyone.
Howie,
Good everyone.
good night.
Thank
Night.
you.
Take care, dear
See you
friends.
next time.
Good night, Nancy.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye.